Look, as we know, the proposal is a ban on recreational fishing for demersal species for 9 months of the year in the West Coast fishery in order to rebuild stocks. And I reinforce the point made by the Deputy Leader of the Opposition, and that is we accept the science. WA has been well blessed with excellent support in the Department of Fisheries, or whatever manifestation it's in, we've led the way since the Honourable Norman Moore followed the science and supported restrictions on the lobster fishing, that there is good science that should be used, and of course we've seen the tremendous outcome of that particular initiative that the Liberal government took back in the day, despite, can I say, considerable opposition, I might say almost violent opposition at the time. So let's make it clear, we support the science and we appreciate that, but good intentions in terms of supporting the science only get you so far. And one of the things we see with this government is they're very good at putting out PR briefs. They're good at the sort of spin of getting the message out there, but the impact of what they're doing is ignored. And we saw this more recently with, and today we heard an announcement on the forest industry, an outstanding industry that supports over 6,000 people. And yet what do we have here? With the forestry industry, the government shutting it down for their social media grabs so they can appeal to people. Can I say probably mostly in my electorate, in the western suburbs of Perth, so that they get a feel good when they turn up to their wine tasting evenings. But in fact destroying what is probably the only genuinely sustainable industry in the state. This decision is just as wrong-headed. Now, you know, a responsible policy obviously has to consider preservation of fishing stocks, but it must balance other critical factors. It must minimise the economic impact on the shires, the towns, recreational fishing groups, the businesses and the broader economy. And unfortunately this policy just doesn't do that, this 9-month closure. And I think anyone who spent more than a minute looking at it would realise how wrong-headed it is for those towns that depend so critically on fishing, and there are many of them in many of those communities. And I might just say, in relation to the decision, that the other thing is, in terms of preserving fish stock, in large part it will simply achieve the outcome of pushing those fishes further north. I know that I've been to Exmouth a number of times over the last little while, and speaking to that community there, they are concerned that they're going to be flooded with fishers from the south who are coming north. I think any of you that know that people that travel to these towns for their fishing, it's not an idle pastime, it's a passion, perhaps almost a religion for them, and they will simply go north, so they're not going to catch fewer fish. You're just going to displace one problem to another area, and I don't think that will solve the problem. In fact, I know it will cause problems when we go north of Kalbarri. Now, you know, many of the towns, and we've seen in the media and the reports, and I won't go through these in detail because we don't have time in this brief time, but, you know, this was covered by the ABC on the Sunday the 11th of September in their article. You know, Recfish West really, I think, did an excellent job of outlining all of the various social and economic impacts that this decision will have, and that is this heavy-handed 9-month ban rather than looking at other ways of this being done. And again, I thank the Deputy Leader of the Opposition for going through that in some detail. And what's very clear in this process is that there's been a deficit of consultation. And again, we see consultation occurring from officers, but what we don't see is meaningful consultation with the people who are going to be affected by this. And honestly, if the Minister or any of his staff had walked into any of the businesses up and down the coast and said, hey, what do you think about a 9-month shut? Well, I think perhaps it wouldn't have got out of the place alive, but they would have told you just how incredibly damaging that would be for those coastal communities that depend on people. Yes, they come there because it's a beautiful recreational area, but they go there, the principal motivation is they go there to fish. That's the activity. They've invested considerable amounts of money. Many of you would know considerable amounts of money in the equipment that they use in the boats. If they can't fish, they wouldn't do that. They may go somewhere else. They may go overseas. They go up to our coastline so that they can fish. And to ban that for 9 months of the year is just unacceptable. And of course we see the failure of that consultation because of the enormous outcry, and might I say organic outcry, in relation to this heavy-handed approach. We saw the minister having to extend the fishing, at least the consultation period. And might I say, rather than say extend the consultation period, I would say actually for the minister and his officers to go out and actually consult and actually understand the impact of this on the community. So, look, credit to the minister and the government for making that decision, but this should have been done in the first place before this announcement was made. Now, you know, as I say, we've seen all of that outrage, and you know, again, as is pointed out, instead of finding practical solutions and working with the industry, we get this one-size-fits-all approach instead of the potential to have a bespoke approach that suits the different areas. And look, you know, I thought it was callous of the minister. You know, the minister came out and he responds to the outrage over the fishing ban, and you know, as reported in the West Australian on the 19th of August. And what's the minister's answer? Instead of saying, look, yep, I've got a good intention here, and we accept that, Minister, you've got a good intention, there's no doubt on this side about that, it's a good intention. But yes, I had a good intention, but perhaps I didn't quite think about this. The minister's three-word response was, take the pain. Take the pain. Now, well, sorry, no, three, take the pain. Take the pain. Take the pain. Yes, yeah, Minister, but Minister, you had a choice. You'll have a chance to respond, Minister, and I'm sure you will. I'm gleefully anticipating your response. You know, when I heard about this, this did plunge me back to 2018, because many of us would remember when we saw what was, well, someone described it as a borderline socialist issue. I would say a socialist idea, but the socialist idea of the government taking over the crayfish, the increase in the crayfish catch, because the crayfish industry is well managed, going back to Norman Moore's day, and the stock's gone up. So what was the government's answer then? Yep, you can increase the catch, but only 315 tonnes would go to the commercial industry, while 1,385 tonnes would be quarantined and later sold off by the state government for whatever purpose. I mean, utterly dumbfounding that the government would do that. And, you know, it was another disaster idea shot down, and the Premier had to step in, order the Minister to actually go and see some sense in all of this and come back with what was a proper plan. And as I said, unfortunately, it appears the Minister's going down the same path. Now, if we look at the petition, 18,000 signatures, I mean, that wasn't someone out there banging the drum. That was an organic, massive response from the community of Western Australia to this issue, and reflects the enormous impact that is going to have on the industry and on the communities. And I congratulate the Shadow Minister for Fisheries, Colin de Grassa, for doing that and for giving people a voice in the Parliament as well. But you know, this is a massive industry for our state. Now, the recreational fishing, I think as the Minister himself has said, that it's a $2.4 billion a year industry. I think it would, it is important to note, I think it's something, Minister, and I'm happy to stand corrected on this one, but I believe it's something like about $1.8 billion of that total impact on the economy comes out of the West Coast fishery. So if you shut down that fishery for 9 months, that has enormous impact on that total benefit to the community and to the people of Western Australia, outside the recreation and enjoyment that people get for it. Now, that ban, and it is no stretch of the imagination to say that ban could in fact cause financial collapse, bankruptcy for many businesses that critically depend on the 10 months of the year as they have now for that fishing industry. And I am fascinated, Minister, the Deputy Leader of the Opposition asked you, but where's the detailed economic modelling of this? What modelling was done to look at the impact on those many, many small businesses up and down the coast that critically depend on fishing, bringing people into that community and then contributing overall to the tourism industries there? Because it's quite clear that anyone who looked at this would not do this and would not have that impact. Now, you know, you look at the sort of impact. There's 100,000 recreational boat owners in Western Australia, most of whom fish in that West Coast fishery. I mean, look, you know, even if they spend you know, around $300 a year on maintenance, which I suspect would be a very small amount, that's $30 million going into the local economy, and nearly all of that spend would go into the local economy. You know, you can go through the other areas, you can look at fuel and whatever, but of course it's all of the other things. It's all of the support, fishing shops, all of those businesses, and then all of the tourism businesses that are associated up and down the coast. I mean, you know, looking at the current the 2-month ban, you know, the business owner in Jurien Bay, Shane Younger, and he's the owner of the Sea Sports and Tackle, and he describes that 2 months as the worst period, my worst 2 months of the year, because he has to struggle through carrying all of the cost of his business for that 2-month period, and then fortunately has 10 months to do it. But to imagine doing that for 9 months, as I say, those businesses, those small family businesses, in all likelihood would fold because of the dramatic decline in the number of people that are visiting the area. So, you know, and I think it's time. We see a lot of this Labor Party, we see a lot of ministers at soirees and swanky events, you know, whether it's $1,000 a bottle of wine tasting or whatever. Most of us can't do that. Most ordinary people can't do that. The simple pleasure they get in life is a couple of weeks with their family or their mates along the coast catching fish. So this is a wrong-headed approach, Minister. I think the Deputy Leader of the Opposition has given some excellent solutions.